I'm just laughing because he got beat up so bad. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, and I really got a kick out of this story, I did. Callum Smith versus Artur Beterbiev. Joe Gallagher confirms, if Callum Smith can't get fights with Canelo, Caleb Plant, or David Benavidez, he will look to move up the challenge, Artur Beterbiev.
Yeah, right.
You're expecting me to believe that the same Joe Gallagher who got all fucking bent out of shape about giving John Ryder a rematch is on board to let his boy Callum move up and fight Beterbiev?
Are you fucking taking the piss?
He almost had a heart attack.
Yeah, he was pissed.
So you're not keen on the rematch then?
Oh,
No.
you fuck off asking me about rematch. Are you fucking taking the piss? I'm not.
No.
Listen, it's just.
No.
You're absolutely taking
No.
the piss. Callum Smith's just fought in defenders about you talking about a rematch.
No, but
He was fucking furious over the very idea that Callum Smith should have to give John Ryder a rematch. So what makes you think that this same Joe Gallagher is on board for Artur Beterbiev
Are
fight?
you fucking taking the piss?
You'd have to be to convince me Joe actually means business. No, I don't think Joe's being serious. I don't think he's being serious at all. What I think is he's trying to give off this illusion when it comes to Callum that he's got bigger fish to fry and better things to do.
But he don't mean that shit.
Look, I got nothing against Callum Smith. I got nothing against Joe. They seem like good guys. But you don't go in there looking the way that Callum looked against John Ryder and then make the decision, okay, now it's time to fight Artur Beterbiev.
Now that I just look like shit.
At its base, it's a common sense argument. If you couldn't establish the jab against John Ryder, who's a good fighter, God bless him, but he's no Artur Beterbiev. If you couldn't establish the jab against that guy to keep the smaller man out, what fucking luck are you gonna have establishing the jab against Artur Beterbiev, who's an even bigger, stronger guy?
At a heavier weight.
You know, I don't remember Callum Smith hurting John Ryder at all, at any point in that fight. I don't. So if you can't assert yourself against John decisively, the idea that you're gonna move on from that performance into a Beterbiev
Are
fight.
you fucking taking the piss?
Come on, Joe. Come on, Callum. You don't expect anybody to believe that.
You guys are fucking around. You're pulling my leg.
That's it. They aren't gonna fight any fucking Artur Beterbiev anytime in the near future, because as good a fighter as Artur Beterbiev is, unified light heavyweight champion, the money's not there for that fight in all the ways that it's there for other fights. Risks versus rewards. That kind of stuff. You gotta look at the situation with an objective lens and all its uniqueness, its characteristics. If you're a light heavyweight and you're campaigning as a light heavyweight, then of course you gotta target a guy like Beterbiev, because if you're not gonna fight him, okay, who are you gonna fight?
Right.
But if you're a Callum Smith, the guy who's campaigning downstairs, and you have a world title of your own,
Then you don't need Beterbiev.
not yet anyways. Not the way you go from looking like shit against John Ryder right into a fight with an Artur Beterbiev. That doesn't even make sense.
You guys been drinking?
You know what I find mighty fucking curious? Joe's got time to acknowledge Canelo.
Yeah.
Of course. Caleb Plant. He's got time to acknowledge David Benavidez.
You got time for them?
But there's this other guy. He's from the United Kingdom, same as you. This guy, I don't know if you heard of him. His name's Billy Joe Saunders.
What?
You ever heard of that guy?
What?
WBO champion at chill weight. That's right. He's got a belt there, the same as Callum. He's a two-division champion, that guy. You know, he beat John Ryder. He actually gave John Ryder his first professional loss many years ago.
You know John.
Gave Chris Eubank Jr. his first professional loss many years ago. Gave David Lemieux a boxing lesson. You never heard of this guy?
Because you didn't mention it.
And he just so happens to fight under the same promotional banner as you. You didn't mention this guy. You never heard of this guy? You didn't mention him. What, you're too good for Billy Joe Saunders? Is that what you're trying to tell me? You're too good for this guy? You got no time for this guy? Let me tell you something. Canelo fucking Alvarez had time for this guy before COVID-19 shut everything down. That's who Canelo Alvarez was supposed to be fighting. So if he's good enough for Canelo, why isn't he good enough for you? Just speaking of that Canelo Alvarez fight, Billy Billy Joe Saunders, the man himself, is saying that Canelo fight seems very unlikely.
Coach from boxing head and promoter Eddie Hearn is trying his best.
Eddie Hearn is trying his best. We're trying to get the Alvarez fight made, but to be honest with you, I don't know what's going to happen, Saunders told IFL. So it is what it is. There's a chance the Canelo fight still takes place, but in September, probably not. All I can do is keep winning. I'm not going to worry about that fight. I'm not desperate for their money. I've got enough money to feed my family. Whether it's 100 million or 200 million or fuck, 10 pence. If I'm not 100% right and they try to spring stuff on me, I won't take it, Saunders said regarding Alvarez's negotiations. I do what the right decision is for me. I'm not working to develop Canelo's career. I'm working on my own career. So if it suits, it suits. If it doesn't suit, then it's not the end of the world. Now, you know what this essentially communicates, right? This communicates that Billy Joe Saunders doesn't have a dance partner yet, that his dance card isn't booked. He's actually free, and at this time, when Joe Gallagher and Callum Smith are likely seeing the same news that me and you are seeing, you don't see Joe bringing up the name of Billy Joe Saunders.
Why is that?
Right. You're from the UK, he's from the UK. Callum's got a title, he's got a title. Callum's a brunette, Billy's a blonde. It's a match made in heaven. What's the problem? It's like Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter. You remember Street Fighter?
I love Street Fighter.
Sometimes you say more with what you don't say than with what you do say. Or you might mention Artur Beterbiev, but I don't believe for a second you guys are serious about fighting that guy. But I noticed that these guys didn't mention the name of Billy Joe Saunders, and what that communicates to me is they must have some kind of aversion to fighting Billy Joe Saunders, and I don't know why, because the fight's right there for you. What are you trying to convince me of? That both David Benavidez and Caleb Plant are bigger names than Billy Joe Saunders? What, that they got better resumes than Billy Joe Saunders? Give me a break. If you got time for those guys, you should have time for this guy, because unlike those guys, this guy is on your side of the street. Now, we've been seeing Caleb Plant the last couple of weeks be very adamant about how much he wants that David Benavidez fight. David Benavidez, who's on his same side of the street.
Right.
So why don't we see Callum Smith doing the same thing when it comes to Billy Joe Saunders? You can acknowledge guys who fight on a different platform under another banner, i.e., the politics of boxing. And in spite of the politics of boxing, you can express a desire to fight with those guys, even though those fights with those guys, they're not likely to happen in the near future. But you fail to acknowledge a guy who's on your same side of the street that fights on the same platforms under the same banner as you. That's gotta be deliberate.
It's gotta be.
If you didn't mention this guy, if you're not bringing this guy up in every other interview, it's not because you don't know who he is. You know who he is. You're not bringing him up because you don't want to, and you don't want to, I can only gather, because you don't want to have that fight. Moving on. Veteran fighter and trainer Floyd Mayweather Sr. had this to say about Deontay Wilder. He says, he's a piece of trash. Mayweather Sr. belittles Deontay Wilder. Floyd Mayweather Sr. has no interest in fixing Deontay Wilder's game. He was quoted as saying, neither one of them really look like nothing where somebody can come out and really tear up someone. Wilder looked bad. I don't know about those fights. Them guys, they just ain't got it. Mayweather Sr. is known as one of the best boxing coaches in the world. The American coach has trained great boxers like Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather Jr., but can he correct the mistakes that Wilder made? Once again, Floyd Mayweather Sr. was quoted as saying, well, I bet on Wilder, but he showed me a lot of shit that he don't know. A lot of people have been asking me to train him, but I don't know if he can be fixed. There's a lot he's got to do that I know he doesn't know. I liked Wilder at first, but now I ain't got nothing to say about him except he's a piece of trash.
Kinda harsh.
Floyd Mayweather Sr.'s anecdotes, his professional opinion is just one of many opinions in reference to Deontay Wilder and what the future holds for him. Where Mayweather Sr. views him as a piece of trash, Buddy McGirt, he thinks that with some small adjustments, perhaps Wilder can win this third fight, this rubber match, against Tyson Fury. There's no shortage of opinions about Deontay Wilder floating around in the boxing cosmos. Some people think he still has a chance, some people don't.
He's finished.
The fact of the matter is, he's coming off a loss, and he's coming off of yet another surgery. And the kind of beating that he took is the kind of beating that can break a fighter's spirit, that can leave a splinter in a fighter's mind.
Mentally broken.
And if that fighter is to bounce back, the foundation has to already be there. Because if history is any indicator of things to come, for those fighters who suffered crushing losses and bounced back in immediate rematches, those were fighters who already had the textbook skills, the fundamentals, the foundation as part of their repertoire. And it's because they already had that foundation that they were able to make the adjustments. Whereas with Wilder's the guy who said he doesn't need skill because he has power. We see how that worked out in real time.
That's why Floyd's saying he ain't got it.
It's very easy to be a wide-eyed optimist and hope for the best and hold out hope that Wilder can pull this one out and get his title back. It's very easy to think these things without quantifying how exactly is that supposed to happen. He's fought Tyson Fury 2 times already. He hasn't beat him yet.
Am I lying?
What, because I'm such a fucking hater? Is that a narrative? Or is that just the cold hard truth? That Deontay Wilder has fought Tyson Fury 2 times so far, and he hasn't beat him yet. And if he were going to beat him, it would have been in the first fight, when Tyson Fury was still on the mend, when he was still on the rebound. The Tyson Fury that he fought in the second fight was a more well-conditioned, more well-trained, more focused Tyson Fury than the one from the first fight. I'll tell you that initially, I didn't know if Tyson Fury's plan of coming forward on Deontay Wilder, being the aggressor, going for the knockout, I didn't know if that was going to work for him. So I actually picked Wilder to win the second fight by way of knockout, because I figured, well, what worked for Fury in the first fight was his defense. If he takes the offensive, he might get himself clipped, he might get himself knocked out. It was the exact opposite. He delivered. He did to Wilder what he said he was going to do to Wilder.
Certainly surprised me.
And we still don't know who Deontay Wilder's bringing in to help him. We still don't know what additions to his team is he going to make so that he can get a different result in the third fight than what he got in the second fight. Because I'll tell you what, if you're going in with the same old situation, with the same old JDs, and the same old Mark Breland, and all the shit that didn't work for you the first 2 times, in all likelihood, the third fight, that's going to be a 3-peat.
Just gonna fail you again.
And even if you get a couple of new faces on the team, and you try some new things, that still doesn't guarantee success, as time is working against you. Your limitations as a fighter are working against you. Your physical state, the surgery you just had, that's working against you. And psychologically, we don't know what's going on upstairs with Deontay Wilder. For all we know, he's got a bag of cats up there after that kind of beating that he took. So I'll tell you what, you don't have to be one of Deontay Wilder's biggest critics to look at this situation and realize that it doesn't look good.
It just doesn't.
Whether you like Deontay Wilder or not, this doesn't look good. And finally, a follow-up to a story that we've been covering here on the channel extensively, per a tweet from Michael Benson. Eddie Hearn on Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury's mandatories. Do we have to fight Alexander Usyk before? Possibly. Dillian Whyte actually has to take priority, in my opinion, over Anthony Joshua to get that shot. We will do everything we can to deliver that. Eddie Hearn has taken a stance, and for a while now, I've been curious as to what stance he was going to take once this beast reared its ugly head. Would he put Dillian Whyte on the back burner for an even longer amount of time to prioritize Joshua versus Fury, or would the order of the day still be getting Dillian his title shot?
It's a conflict of interest.
And it all boils down to what Eddie Hearn is more interested in. Makes it a conflict of interest. Is he more interested in making Joshua versus Fury by any means necessary, or is he more interested in getting Dillian Whyte that title shot?
Which one is it?
And he's taking a stance. He's essentially saying Dillian has to get a shot. That takes priority. That takes precedence. I think that Eddie Hearn's stance is aided,
motivated,
not just by Dillian Whyte wanting his title shot, but also by Alexander Usyk and his commitment to Alexander Usyk, that Usyk wants his title shot, Anthony Joshua, just as much as Dillian Whyte wants his title shot, Tyson Fury.
And you're in bed with both of these guys.
So you can't prioritize the Joshua versus Fury fight here and now without fucking those 2 guys over. Might not be good for business. I don't think it's necessarily a moral compass that's guiding Eddie Hearn's stance so much as a business-minded one. You want the undisputed heavyweight title fight to be everything that it can be. You want it to be for all the belts. And there's no way it can be for all the belts if Joshua ends up sacrificing one of them to his mandatory challenger, whether it's Kubrat Pulev or Alexander Usyk. So he's got to take care of business. And since he's got to take care of business, there's no reason that Tyson Fury shouldn't have to do the same thing. Dillian Whyte, that's your mandatory challenger. So while Joshua handles his mandatory and Kubrat Pulev, you can fulfill your contractual obligation to Deontay Wilder. Give him a third fight. Afterwards, while Joshua takes care of yet another mandatory challenger knocking on his door, in Usyk, you can take care of your mandatory challenger knocking on your door in Dillian Whyte.
And everybody wins.
Everybody gets what they want. Everybody gets what they are owed. If you're Eddie Hearn and you're sitting where he's sitting, this is the ideal scenario.
The ball's on Tyson to make it happen.
But we all know what the talk of the town has been when it comes to Tyson. The rumblings that he might be elevated to franchise champion to skirt around that Dillian Whyte fight.
It's a possibility.
In reference to that, Eddie Hearn said, "We don't want the WBC to make Fury franchise champion. Let him take care of his mandatory just like Joshua's taking care of his. We don't want to be elevated from interim champ. He wants to fight the champion. He wants to fight Tyson Fury." And we all know that Tyson's not interested. He can't be bothered with a Dillian Whyte fight. But in the scenario, in the event that Tyson Fury is elevated to franchise champion and Dillian is promoted to world champion, that still plays into Eddie Hearn's hands. That still works in his favor because now it'll be that much easier to orchestrate the fight for all the alphabet titles, the WBC, the WBA, the WBO, and the IBF, as Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte, the both of them, would be in possession of all four between them. That would be a unification match that could easily be made in-house for the kind of money that Dillian Whyte has always wanted.
From the get-go.
And the green belt, the world title, that has been so elusive for Anthony Joshua to get his hands on. That Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte 2 could be for all the belts, all the titles, the alphabet titles, emphasis on alphabet. Not quite sure that you could label it an undisputed heavyweight title fight, as there still would be some dispute since Tyson Fury still is the Ring Magazine and lineal heavyweight champion. But as far as all the alphabet titles, that fight between Dillian and Anthony, that's what that would be. And from where Eddie Hearn is sitting, that's still a good scenario.
An in-house unification fight.
Tyson Fury, he'll still be there, won't he?
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. If he decides to retire without having that fight, the annals of time in the boxing community won't be kind to his legacy. That if Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte's rematch ends up being for all the alphabet titles, and while they have that rematch, Tyson decides to retire, guess what? That comes at no consequence to either of them.
It'll reflect poorly on Tyson.
But not those two guys. It's not their fucking fault. They got no control over when this guy decides to retire or unretire. He can do whatever the fuck he wants and reap what he sows. We'll see how it all breaks down. And rest assured, it will.